Ciao everybody. I am working with a beautiful bunch of supplies today from Jesse James Beads. They are running specials all month, and of course I had to get in on it, and this is just absolutely delicious, and I'm going to make the sweetest multi-strand necklace here. So the first thing that I have on my mat is this beautiful bead strand called Designed by Me bead strand in Caliente Coral Pink. It's absolutely gorgeous. It has some crystal hearts, it has some glass pearls, it has some other crystals, some cage beads, some crystal rondelle spacers. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to go ahead and cut that open and get a little dish in here for that. From my stash, I also just have some little gold jump rings, and I have some crimp beads. I'm going to be doing the super simple method of flat crimping for my necklace project because it's going to be lightweight and petite, not long strands, and that will be like the best, really the best crimping method for that. And then I also have on my mat this Sorceress Sweet Enamel dangle chain, and it's called Wicked Pink. It is so gorgeous. I know that's not the best camera angle for you, but it is so flirty and fabulous and dangly. I just love it. So I have cut a little length here of the chain, and that's going to be the second layer on my necklace. I absolutely just love, it's a little bit ombre too, like there's a couple shades of that pink. It's just so gorgeous. And then the wonderful bead mix that I have here is one of their classics. It's a Market Fresh mini mix, and the color story is called Baby Blanket. It's so sweet. I absolutely love the little flower bead caps. There are two different ones. There are some yellow kind of citrine faceted crystals. There's a lot of floofies in this bead mix. There's white floofies and pretty pink ones, and this pretty silky tassel, a couple of those. There's some teardrops in a couple of colors. There's this really pretty blue, and look at this one. Doesn't it actually look like a drop of water? It's gorgeous. It's got that AB kind of flash on the inside, and there's even some acrylic or like faux Baroque coin pearls. I just think that's so wonderful. And there is some silver bead caps in here, but it's a little bit of a mix of silver and gold, and that's what I'm going to do on my necklace. These gorgeous dangles are also in that bead mix. There are 4 of them. They're these little crystal stars. They're actually look like they're a prong set, and they already come with the little jump ring on them. And there's even a pretty little petite gold toggle set in that bead mix. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to just mix up the gold and silver in this piece. That was a big trend for 2025, and it's really a fun trend too, because then you can just have fun, anything goes, and the two metallics do kind of highlight each other. To start out with, I'm just going to take from my scrap bag some bead stringing wires. So you can use anything you have. 7 strand is fine, 49 strand is fine. This one that I had, I believe, is 19 strand. And because like I said, there won't be a lot of weight on this. And if you are newer to jewelry making and crimping, this is going to be super easy for you. I am going to feed my crimp tube on, and from this point here, you can either use a wire guardian, or you can string on some seed beads to cover the wire to make your loop. But I often just let my bead stringing wire be exposed, and that's what I'm going to do today because I've chosen gold, and it's going to get connected to this silver bar on this chain. So I'm just going to let this be exposed, and I'm going to make a loop. Sometimes it's easier to do that with your pliers. Just get the wire to go loop back down through the crimp bead. Get a nice size loop, about like that should do. And then I'm just going to take my pliers and go over the crimp bead and just flatten it. You don't have to kill it, but just flatten it like that. And if you wanted to, you could come back in and put a crimp cover over it. I usually do that at the end of my design. So this is going to get connected right here. So I need to string a pattern that is about this long. I did not measure this. I eyeballed this because this design is fully adjustable. You could make this super long. You could really make this any length that you want. And I'm going to do the back. Forgot to tell you, I have this other chain reaction here that's called Crystal Skies, and it's crystal and silver. And it has this cool compilation of bars and kind of square contemporary connectors. And what I did is I divided it in half. So I made 2 equal lengths, and that's going to finish off my necklace. Chain reaction is so wonderful. It's such a fast, easy, and yet elegant way to complete designs. So both sides are exactly the same, and I have these 2 little bars on this end, which I'm going to do something kind of creative to connect the little bars from this chain to the little bars to this chain to finish off my design. So I'll just let that chain reaction hang out there while I start my stringing. And I'm going to just play in these bead mixes. These crystal rondelle spacers are like looks like they're rose gold or like a really pale copper, and I love these crystal pinks. I actually love this whole bead mix, but I'm just going to take those out on my mat, and then I'm going to play in the bead mix here with the teardrops and the crystals. And I also am going to use this gold and silver 11-0 seed bead mix from Jesse James Beads. You know, I think sometimes people forget that they have a nice section of seed beads on their website. So, and I love seed beads. They're so great as spacers and to get links just right. So I'm going to put some of those out here, and I'm going to just start playing in my bead mix and create a little strand, just a mini strand that's going to nestle in a concentric way inside my dangling chain. So I'm going to cover, put my bead over my cut end. So I'm just adding in those little sparkly stars, and I love those teardrops that look like water. And I'm just using the chain, the dangly chain, as my guide for, you know, how much to do. And so I'm about halfway there. And so when I modified my chain, I had to cut off one of the little dangles. So I'm going to take a jump ring, and I'm going to make that the center, the little center drop on this tier of my necklace. And I'll just tie in all of my chains that I'm mixing together. Like design wise, it's just going to make it really cohesive. So I'm just going to put a jump ring through there. And I picked up a gold one because I'm just gonna like evenly mix the gold and silver. And I'm just going to thread that on. Oh, that's so pretty and so dangly. I think I'm going to add a large crystal before I do that. These beautiful large crystals are in the baby blanket bead mix. So I think I'm going to do a crystal and then this dangle and then another crystal, and then I'm going to mirror this pattern. Then I'm going to just repeat this pattern up this side. Okay, my little tiny bit of stringing is done. It is so sweet. I did decide to steal a couple of the dangles, 2 more dangles from my chain, so that I have 3 of those little bits bobbling in between, and it's just a really pretty, interesting little thing that's going to nestle above this strand. So look how much I have left over. This is what I mean about a Jesse James bead mix. I still have 2 of the little crystal stars that dangle, and like almost the entire bead mix. And on the strand too, I decided not to use the heart crystals because of the scale. I'm going to set these aside, but there's just always so much to work with. So I have this 2 little piles. This is going to be turned into a connector for where my two chains meet up. They both happen to have bars, and then I have the same little stack of beads for this side, and I'll show you exactly how that is going to happen. But I'm going to get the other crimp bead out of my pot and put that on this side, and just do the same thing that I did on the other side, but in reverse. Just put that crimp bead on there and make a loop and go back down through a couple of beads. When you're doing a loop like this with no leverage, with no toggle or anything, you can put your pliers in there so that you can have, give it a little tug. That really helps. And I'm just going to check my loop on this side. It's pretty close. And my piece is not rigid because I don't want it to be too tight, because if that happens, then my dangling bits won't dangle. So I don't want to let that happen. So before I flat crimp this other bead, I'm just going to check everything. And if you need to back things down to make a little space, now is the time. And so I'm pretty happy with that. And I'm going to repeat the same thing on this side. Just put my pliers over the crimp bead and just flatten it. And trim away the bit that's hanging out of my, hiding in that bead. And now there's going to be a little bit of unusual connecting on this necklace, because the bars on this chain have really tiny holes, and normally I would make my components with 20 gauge wire. That's kind of my go-to wire, but that will not fit through the chain reaction or this dangle chain. So I'm going to use 22 gauge wire and create components with wrapped loops. So I have just a couple of scraps here of 22 gauge wire. So I'm going to come right about there and put a bend in my wire and put my round nose pliers in, bring the wire over that top barrel, rotate it, bring that around, and my loop is ready to be wrapped, but I don't want to wrap it yet because I need to connect my chains. So I'm going to put this unwrapped loop through this bar where I've removed a link from this bar. The 22 gauge wire fits in there just beautifully. And I'm going to close up that space that I gave myself and get a hold of my loop and just wrap it closed now that it's attached. Two or three wraps should do it. And now my bead stack that I laid out, I'm going to stack some of the bead caps. So I'm going to put the silver one on, this pretty little petal pink one, and then a pink crystal from the bead strand, and then another little petal pink one facing down. So my crystal is so beautifully peeking out of the little stack of bead caps. And now I'm going to hold on to this and hold on to it again with my pliers and make another 90-degree bend and do the same thing in reverse. Start my loop by wrapping over the barrel, rotate my barrel. I'm going to bring this around, get it nice and centered, get that loop so that it's really pretty and centered. And now before I wrap it closed, I'm going to open it and give myself a little bit of space and take 1/2 of my chain reaction that I've separated and just feed that bar right onto that loop. Just wiggle it around in there And again, do the same thing in reverse. I'm going to close that loop up and just get my plier in there and wrap down to my beads. And I'm going to trim my wire and tuck that cut end so that there is nothing scratchy on my necklace and nothing that will scratch clothing or snag clothing. And so it's such a pretty way to join the two chains, just to make a wire wrapped loop component. And so that side is ready, and then the other matching side is going to get exactly the same treatment. And I just use scraps of 22 gauge wire. So I'm just going to come down, giving myself 2 or 3 inches, just enough to make a loop. Just repeating the same thing that I did on the other side. I'm going to hold on to that loop and do a few wraps. And my second side is done. So my necklace is just looking great. Now, on this end, I rescued the little loops here. So for adding my toggle on, I don't need to worry about the size of my wire that will go through, because I actually have a little loop there that I can attach my clasp. So I'm going to take 2 small jump rings and attach my round part of my toggle to one side and my T-bar to the other side, to the back of my necklace. Just go through that retained loop and pop on my toggle. And same thing on this side. My clasp is on, and so my length of my necklace is determined. And with my last 2 jump rings that I have out here, going to add with those jump rings, I'm going to add my inner dangling section to my necklace. And so what I'm going to do is come to the bottom wrapped loop that I made on each side and put my jump ring through my loop of my strand that I strung and through that wrapped loop that I created. So it will hang really pretty, really nicely on the inside. So I'm just going to come through that loop and put my strand on there. And just make sure that it's closed really well. And then I'm going to come to this side and do the exact same thing. So as I said at the beginning, with the beautiful chain reaction, you can make a necklace like this any length that you want. I think this one is absolutely gorgeous. It is about 20 inches long, and I just love the mixture of gold and silver, just the way it transitions from the gold to the silver. And this little transition component to connect the two chains is absolutely beautiful. I used gold wire with silver bead caps, so you just get that really pretty mix sitting in between the two chains. And also, to make it cohesive, stealing a couple of the dangles from the chain to add into my strung section, actually 3 of them. That is just so pretty. It just ties the dangling chain ties it into the chain that I created, or the strung part that I created. So I will definitely put some better pictures up at the end, and a link for Jesse James Beads will be there. And don't forget to check out their Fab Find section of their website, as well as their sales section. They have a sale going on right now on bead mixes and on bead strands, and they're just like, they're unparalleled. They're like no other. I always say that. The designers that do the bead strands at Jesse James Beads do a great job, and you can totally get lost in one of their bead mixes. And you can see I did a wonderful project here, and it feels like I have the entire bead mix and bead strand left over. You just get so much for your money. So I thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Ciao, everybody.